This morning is the morning after the Arsenal Man United game that you called last night. You don't know this because you don't really follow social media, but you've gone a bit viral because of your commentary at the end. Is Arsenal going to win the league?
Well, it's beginning to look as though they just might. You know, it's a crazy time to go and watch Arsenal play. I must say that the fans are kind of pinching themselves and not quite believing it, but every time they win, that little bit of belief continues to grow, and yesterday's game was a mighty dramatic one.
You're obviously just back from the World Cup in Qatar. That experience must have been phenomenal for you. Being the commentator that had the privilege to call that final, watching Messi, the magic man, as you call him. Talk us through that experience.
Yeah, you used the right word, Mandy. Privilege is exactly what it is. And I always say this about commentators in general, that we are completely at the behest of what's put in front of us. You know, you can only be as good as the raw material you're presented with. And we're just the lucky ones who sit with a microphone in our hand and watch the football match develop. And that football match was just an absolute monster. You know, it just kept on giving. The stars stepped up, the superheroes, Mbappe on one side and Messi on the other. Until 10 minutes from time, it looked as though it was going to be pretty routine, actually. Argentina were 2-0 up and France hadn't been very good. And, you know, it was just going to be a fairly straightforward story. But you have to be ready for anything. And Mbappe suddenly had his say, and France were back in it, and it all went crazy. And it was just an absolute thrill to be there.
You have said in many interviews that the opening match of the 2010 World Cup in South Africa is the greatest match that you've ever commentated on. Do you have a different view after doing that final?
Well, I think I can skip that question by finding two separate categories for them, because I think as a football match, clearly that World Cup final it must be up there on its own. As an occasion, though, I would absolutely cling to 2010, Shabalala and all of that, just because I think that transcended football. Messi and Mbappe, France and Argentina was just a brilliant, brilliant game. But what South Africa against Mexico meant to a country, a continent, the world, I think leaves that out on its own. And that will remain, I think, as an event, the one that has the hairs up on the back of my neck. Because it was a hugely special day, and I feel emotional about it whenever I think about it. But yeah, I've got to say that Argentina against France was a stunning football match.
I think that South Africans also remember that match, you know, obviously so fondly, and it's so emotive for us because Bafana Bafana is just not what it used to be. We didn't even make it to the World Cup finals this time around. So we're experiencing a bit of a, shall we say, lull at the moment with our national
These things
team.
are cyclical. They come and go. You'll be back.
Thank you. We appreciate that. So one of your standout lines at the World Cup was when Morocco beat Belgium, the second goal, where it's such a great line. I'm sure you remember it. The drink it in Casablanca, relish it, Rabat, this is your night. And it was phenomenal for Africa to see the way that the African teams did at the World Cup. So yeah. Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Cameroon. Was this the rise of Africa for you at the World Cup? And what is your feeling commentating on African teams?
First of all, I really hope it is, because the trouble with me saying this is it sounds as though here I am sat in Europe, kind of patting you on the head and saying there, well done and all of that. I'm really not. When I express the view that the World Cup is so much better when it really does represent the whole world, and the colour and the feel and the vibrancy that is of a different type when it's from Africa to Europe. You know, England supporters make a lot of noise, and of course, as an Englishman, I enjoy that. And Argentina supporters make a lot of noise, and Brazilians and so on. But you know, each does it their own way. And the Moroccan supporters at this World Cup were absolutely phenomenal. And there is a sense of universality when everybody is properly involved. It's odd because this World Cup we've just had was obviously a very, very controversial one, a contentious one around all sorts of issues. And yet, strangely, almost contrarily, it turned out to be the most representative World Cup in footballing terms that perhaps we've ever had. And as you say, Saudi Arabia had a lot to do with that. Morocco had most to do with that. And, you know, I was lucky to be there the night Cameroon beat Brazil, which is impossible. And, you know, that was fantastic too.
You've said that preparation is 90% of what you do. But come on, Peter, do you script some of those lines? Like when you come up with a line all aboard the Marrakesh Express and you speak about relish it in Rabat, you know, those kinds of lines, how much of that is, do you think about beforehand?
These are the rules, Mandy. These are the rules for me. And I'm not saying what's right and what's wrong. Because other commentators would do it differently. But I think that you are a fool as a commentator to script anything that you think might happen during the game. That is live. It's utterly unpredictable. If you try to imagine a goal the night before when you're sat in your hotel room and prepare some words for it, when the moment comes, those words won't fit. Now, I don't want to script anything, because if you're too scripted, it sounds too scripted. But what I will admit to doing ahead of, say, a Morocco game like that is thinking, look, you know, let's get a bit outside the box here. I can prepare all the facts and figures and all of those, but just imagine they win this game against Belgium, which they surely won't do. Let's have some thoughts about what do people think when they think Morocco? What are the big cities in Morocco? You know, Marrakesh, Rabat, Fez, you know, let's have them, let's make sure they're on the tip of my tongue. So whilst I don't write down laboriously sentences, sort of word after word, I absolutely would think, you know, give myself some time to think about the reality of a shock Morocco win. My natural instinctive knowledge of Morocco isn't great. So yeah, I thought I probably Googled big cities in Morocco, you know, just to make sure I had a list. You know, I've seen Casablanca like everybody has, you know, but you know, that's kind of it. It's just to have the seeds of a few thoughts. And then if there's 85 minutes gone and Morocco are winning, you're thinking, your mind's in overdrive thinking, do you know what, if they hang on here and win this game, this is going to be something.
It would be remiss of me not to ask you about the great GOAT debate and Lionel Messi. In your career, is he the greatest player you've ever had the privilege of commentating on?
I think so. I listen, he had his crowning moment now in a way that Ronaldo didn't. And this is a really cruel debate, I think, actually. Whatever your personal views on Ronaldo or Messi, you know, they've both been brilliant. And funnily enough, as a human race, we're never quite content with that, are we? We have to decide who's the best. And of course, nobody can decide. They've both been phenomenal. But I think it's now the case that Messi got a crowning moment that Ronaldo didn't quite. And so maybe at the end of it all, Messi's won the argument.